Hello, and in this 10-minute PD, we're going to be talking about Google Forms. So Google Forms is something that I think a lot of us has used a little bit, but let's see what we can explore about it. So I'm just going to open a blank Google form and just go over the different parts of it. So across the bar at the top, we can name it. Okay, so I'm just going to call it test form so I can remember which one it is in my Google Drive. And it does have that little folder so I can put it exactly where I want to when I create it. I can make it a priority as well in my Google Drive. So we have our questions tab. We have our responses tab, and that's where all the responses will come in when the form is complete. And then we have our settings. I'm going to just talk basics of questions first so I can have a description. Complete this form. Okay. We have basic questions. You can have a question, and then there's a couple ways that students can put answers in. They can have a short answer, a paragraph, multiple choice. You can create checkboxes, drop down. You can upload a file. They can upload a file, a scale of I'm comfortable, I'm not comfortable, 1 to 10 kind of thing. A multiple choice grid, a checkbox grid. They can have a date and a time. So I think the ones short answer, paragraphs, multiple choice, checkboxes. I think we're okay with those. Drop down is so students when they get to that question they'll actually have an arrow and they'll be able to select which one that they want. Now, let me show you an example of that. On this Google form that I have created, it's a social studies map quiz. I put all of my options in for the states that I want. This is a drop down option. So all of these options will be present for the students. So when I go to preview that eyeball right at the top, so students will see the map, they'll see what state is number one. Then they can click and be able to identify which one is the state they want to choose. I already went through this form to make sure all the questions work, so they do already have answers selected. But when it would be blank, it would just say choose. And then it tells them it's a required question. I'm just going to throw in some random answers. But that way, all of them are dropped down for this one. The reason I sometimes do drop down is because you can have the quiz graded for you. So that's a great option. But we'll get into that in a little bit, self-grading quizzes. Another option that they have is a file upload. So what that means is that students will be required to sign in. Their emails will be collected and they'll be able to select something from their Google Drive that you will then be able to see. So you could say, have some questions and say, upload your writing from today. They would have the option of uploading that document. Let me show you what that would look like. On this Google form, I've gone through all of the different parts, and this is the question where they have to upload it. So I actually made a video for the students who are going to be taking this quiz, and I said, how do you upload it? And then all they'll see is they'll say add file. And I don't know if this will pop up for me, but when it says add file, I'll be able to upload from my computer. I can upload from my drive or something that I've previously uploaded before. So students will have the option of uploading something to this Google form. So it could be their work, it could be a document, it could be really whatever that you would like it to be. So that is an option when doing this. A multiple choice grid. So there'll be rows and there'll be columns with answers. So this one could get a little bit more complicated, as would the checkbox grid. So the checkbox grid is they would be able to check off as many as they needed, while the multiple choice would kind of limit how many they could. Okay. And you can actually make it so they have to put a response in every row. And same thing with checkboxes, require a response in every row. Again, those answers get a little bit more complicated to look at, but it is still an option with Google Forms. There's a Google form that I created for fourth grade, Mufar's beautiful daughter. We had last year we had a hyperdoc for it, and I said, you know what? Let's take this one step further and think about voice and choice with it. So as I went through, I have sections. We know we have many students who they would scroll through an entire Google form and just be completely overwhelmed by what it looks like. So we can divide this into sections. So I can say before beginning, you're going to watch this movie. And I included a moat too, so they could listen to the directions and not just have to read them. But do you notice, like, it just is this one step? This is all they have to do. And then they just have to click next when they're done with it. Okay. So this hyperdoc goes through, there's a lot of videos in this one. So a video about how to do their notes, and then ask them, are they going to take notes for the story online or on paper? This is where options comes in. Did you know you can have students answer a question a certain way and then take them a certain way on a form? Let's see what that looks like. So in Mufaro's Beautiful Daughter, when you have multiple sections, which is this button right here, the two bars, it looks like an equal sign, that will divide it up into sections. So again, so when you look at it, they're going to see one chunk at a time instead of everything. I also did this in the Southeast region quiz. There are sections. So this first section is just the state names. And then the second section is about mountain ranges and bodies of water. And I have to obviously put it in. You can also put that at the bottom so students have an idea of how many sections they have to go through. So when you do the sections, you can choose when they've selected it, what section is that going to bring them to? Okay, so after the movie, it's just going to bring them to the next section. When they decide the notes, this can make it so you select a certain answer. So I have my multiple choice question. And when I go to do it, I can add an option, test option, and it can bring me to a certain place. So when you map this out, I say, you know what, they're doing it online. They need to go to the online notes section. If they're doing it on paper, they need to go to the paper section. I know that sounds a little crazy, but when you're starting to give your students voice and choice, having them go to the correct place is really important. Okay, so that way they go to the correct place. So if they're online notes, it takes them where they have to go and they get the directions. If they're on paper, it takes them to the paper notes and gives them the directions. And then both of them go to section 5 after. Okay, should bring them to section 5. So having that choice when you have multiple sections, you can change it that way. So let's show how to do the multiple choice test question. If you want them to go to a certain section after, you would then click these 3 dots right next to required. So we're on our test question, the 3 dots, and go to a section based on answer. So let's say they get the question wrong. You want them to watch then a review video. You would say that you're going to go to that review section. If they get it correct, they get to go to the next question. So you're able to build this form and help the students as they go so they can have the help that they need. Let me just talk about these little parts right here. We have our add a question, import question. So maybe you say you have some on another form that you want to use. So you can pull questions from other forms. My computer's being a little slow, so I could pull them up from, let's say here, and move my head. So I am going to pull, let's say, this whole section. I can import those questions right from there. So let's say you've done some questions and the kids just need a little more support. Pull them, use those questions again. Instead of reinventing the wheel, pull from what you already have. You can change the title and you can add a title and description. Oh, it went right here. So I have another title. I can add an image. So in the Southeast region one, I inserted image. It's not a question. It's just inserting the image so it gives them a visual. When I was in the Mufaro's Beautiful Daughter, they had an image of a text feature of a anchor chart. So they had their anchor chart that they could look at as they're doing it. So to help them and support them, you can add images into those forms. You can add movies in. So when you go to add a video, you can use it right from YouTube. Okay. I've found some issues with linking the Screencastify videos to there. So if you're using a Screencastify that's saved in your drive, I use the link instead of actually like inserting the link in the form so they can click it and use it. But you can also easily upload Screencastify videos to YouTube. So you can always do it both ways. And when you insert a video, let me scroll right here. That's just a picture. This is a video. So when they look at it, this is what it would look like for them. If you insert it as a hyperlink, it would be this link right here. And then if it's a video, it'd be right there in them. They don't have to go anywhere else.
Hi everyone, it's Mrs.
Okay, so they would just go right in there. They don't have to go anywhere else. And then the last thing is the entering the different sections. So all of those right here are very valuable. The last thing I want to talk about is the top. So we have customize our theme. You can just use colors, or they have built-in pictures, or you can upload a picture of your own. So if you want jelly beans, and then when you insert it, they kind of give colors that go with it, so you can kind of pre-customize it. And look at the top, they have pretty jelly beans. And then when you view it, those jelly beans will be at the top of every single section. So every section will have whatever banner you put will be on there. A preview, so if you want to see what it looks like for the students, you can see exactly what it looks like. That's when I had it. And then the submit button, always make sure the kids hit submit. And then undo, redo, Control Z and Control Y, undo and redo, are ones that you can also use on here. So there's so many parts of Google Forms that I want to talk about, but the last thing that I want to talk about here, and I'll talk about more in the next video, is how to actually give it to your kids. So you can email it to them, but elementary does not have access to email. So you can put it in as a hyperlink and you can copy and paste it, or you can assign it in your Google Classroom. So if I go to my Google Classroom, and I have a lot of Google Classrooms on here, but I do have a test Google Classroom. I'm going to go to classwork, and I am going to create an assignment. Let's move my head back over there. Create a quiz assignment. So I'm not going to use the blank one. I'm going to insert the one that I've already created. So I'm going to use the Mufara's Beautiful Daughter one. Insert. Get rid of that one. Test quiz. And you can change the points, you can change the topic, you can do all that. I'm going to hit assign. And then I'm actually going to go to my student window. So you can see what it looks like as a student. Go to my classroom. Test quiz. Mufara's Beautiful Daughter, and it opens right there. So you can save it, share it as a link, or you can share it as right in Google Classroom. So then the other important thing to realize is, do you notice how all my answers are already in here? If you have them logging in, it is saving my answers. So if I click out of it and click back in it, if I hit next, my answers are already there. I've already filled out this form before, testing it out to make sure it works, and it does. So in the next video, I'm going to talk more about the different options with Google and all of these settings, because Google can make a self-grading quiz for you, which will save you time in the end. So pay attention for the next one, and we'll look for self-grading quizzes.